You're listening to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans.
If you want to have guarantees, you have to buy a washing machine.
Fonte with a scooping header.
We don't lose a match, either we win or we learn. And today we learned.
Отдача, Остин! Все-таки забил!
It's infield to Mane, 25 yards out. Lovely ball for Bella. Onside, 1-0. Buffon shot! Oh my word!
Unbelievable. He ran around a bit like Bambi on ice. It was very, very embarrassing to watch.
And now, your host, Matt Markstone.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast and newsletter dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans, available right here on southamptondelivery.com. My name is Matt Markstone. I am the host of the show, and no matter where you are, no matter how you may be listening, whether this is your first time or you've been here before, thanks for making the show part of your day. I hope that you enjoy it, and maybe it makes it a little bit better that this is the originally scheduled international break, the last one of the season. So there wouldn't be any football this weekend anyway. But let's face it, it's been a couple of weeks. We miss it. That's it. I think that's just it. We're all adjusting to life as it is right now, and it will be this way for the foreseeable future. We still don't know the future or when the season will come back, if it will come back, how it will be played out with the top divisions of the men's game. But the NWSL season, the division that the Southampton Women's Football Club plays in, is officially done. The records will be expunged, and that means that although we weren't due to talk about that necessarily, that takes up the bulk of this week's conversation is, what do you do with the season that didn't really happen? And to help me make sense of that is the club media officer for the Southampton Women's Football Club, Hayley Newman. Hayley is going to join the show virtually, of course, because we are social distancing. Never mind the fact that we live approximately 11-hour flights from one another. But anyway, she'll join the show, and we'll talk a little bit about her role at the club. We'll talk about some moments in the season that, although they won't officially show up in record books anywhere, they are going to be maybe impossible to kind of forget. We'll talk about that stuff. We'll talk about the FA Cup run and a number of other things that Hayley will bring up as during our conversation. So I think that you'll enjoy it. I hope that you'll enjoy it. And if you want to get in touch with the Southampton Women's Football Club, you can do that. They are on Twitter at SOTON Women's FC. The website is southamptonwfc.co.uk. If you want to get in touch with Hayley, you can do that at Newman Hay on both Twitter and Instagram. The links to all of those things are in the show notes. And as always, if you are interested in sponsoring either the team or a player from the club, you can do that. Get in touch with Amanda Burroughs, the club secretary. The link to that is in the show notes. They rely on sponsorships to make the season happen. So even though this season will not continue, the next one will, and you can be a part of it. Just get in touch with her. So let's talk to Hayley now. Talk to you on the other side. Thanks for joining. I hope you're well. Well, it's nice to have somebody on the show who understands the importance of getting the surrounding sounds before you start recording. Some people are like, I'm like, all right, 10 seconds room noise. And like, yeah, cool. And they just keep talking. I'm like, no, I need you to actually be quiet.
Shut up.
Yeah. But anyway, we'd like to welcome back to the show Hayley Newman. She is the media officer for the Southampton Women's Football Club, whose season, unfortunately, is now come to a close. But you can find her on Twitter at Newman Hay and on Instagram at Newman Hay. And you can get in touch with the Southampton Women's Football Club on there as well at SOTON Women's FC. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Matthew.
Yeah. I've been meaning to catch up. This is the scheduled international break for Southampton and for men's football across the UK. But right now there is no season, and I don't know when the season's coming back. But we did get some clarification on what's happening with the Southampton Women's Football Club season. And this, my understanding after reading the thing is that it's over and that this year basically just won't count.
Yeah, that is basically what the FA have said. I believe it was a decision made between the FA and the league, but they didn't actually speak to the clubs involved. So there's a couple of clubs at the moment that are a little bit less than happy, and I think they may be challenging the decision, but it is what it is, unfortunately. You know, we as a club, we were still in with the shout for our title, but obviously everything's going to be wiped off the slate, which is actually really disappointing in terms of, say, some of the results, some records, because there are things that have been achieved this season that I'm now sitting here thinking, do they no longer count? They say like player appearances. You know, we had a couple of players this year that hit milestones, 50 club appearances, or 100 club appearances, 50 goals, or they've like now narrowed down those records and suddenly going, well, actually, have I got to wipe them all off the slate now? That seems to be the case, but yeah, it was an interesting decision to come out, but we'll deal with it and look ahead to next season. Obviously, we're assuming next season's going to take place as normal, so starting in August, but we haven't actually had clarification on that because it might also be determined on when the rest of the football season, because they haven't actually decided what they're going to do with the top two tiers of women's football, so the WSL and the Championship. I think they're looking to get them concluded, but that can still, be another few weeks before we find out what happens there.
Yeah, and I can imagine that the teams that are upset about it are the teams that are looking at potential shot for promotion, and in the movement upward to the next division above you of women's football is a big jump, and it would mean a lot for the club to have that opportunity. And yeah, it's kind of stopped everything, and we don't know when the Premier League's coming back or any men's football. We don't know when the top two divisions of women's football is going to come back. And you can understand, I mean, you talk about the men's game, there's a lot of money in the Premier League and downwards in terms of the TV rights deals and things like that, and what has to happen if those games don't get played. You have they're talking about potentially playing games behind closed doors and things like that. And I think all of that disrupts kind of what we want. We all want to watch football. I think that's kind of why it's why you do your job, and that's why I do my job, and or not my job, but this show. And to not have that, especially when you're stuck at home, is kind of like, man, like I wish we could. But in the grand scheme of things, that's really probably not as big of a deal as sometimes we make it out to be.
Yeah, that's the thing. If anything, I think the current world situation is bringing home that sports, football in particular, it's not the be all and end all. There are more important things, your health, spending time with your family, doing other things. You can have a break from it. But we are very much in a situation that we just don't know how sport, football, obviously in our case, is going to come back from this. Like, does it all resume, and where we go from here?
Well, I would say let's talk about the season that was or wasn't, but so yeah, I guess let's do that. So for people that don't maybe know what your role is at the club or what a media officer does, can you just kind of describe what you do at a club like Southampton Women's? Granted, we know that it's a fairly small kind of staff. There are a lot of people volunteering a lot of time, but can you kind of just describe your role as the media manager?
Yeah, I'll describe what I've created the role as. I mean, I don't know whether this is what 100% a media officer does, okay. But for me, I do pretty much anything media-wise that you see for the club. So that's social media, match reports, interviews, that's like the video or written ones, which are generally like post-match interviews, the website when I get a chance, keep that updated. And I also do our match day program. So that's all designed and put together by me. Obviously I'm chasing a couple of people for say answers to interviews for that, or chasing the manager, Aaron, weekly, for his manager notes for the program, but all the graphics as well this year, so like goal graphics, all the match graphics, to tell people, we've got a game coming up. They were all by myself. So yeah, that's basically it for me. Is just anything media wise, it's me.
Yeah. Well, how did you, I mean, that's a lot of different things to take into consideration. You have, because all of that stuff is at some point highly specialized, right? Like between, there are audio people, there are video people, there are people who are doing graphics and all of those things. And I mean, how did you get into, I guess, where did that desire, where did that kind of interest in that come from for you?
It was back at school. I wanted to be a journalist, and then I sort of looked at sports journalists. So that's why I went off to sort of do college and university. And then when I got into being asked into working in football, and more specifically with a club, it was like, obviously I'd done little bits of various things when I was at studying. So we delved in a bit of filming, editing, magazine design, and various things. So I had a lot of different elements anyway. My main sort of area of strength, I would always say, had been my writing.
Okay.
But because I had the background of other things, I was like, I can take that in. And then when I joined my very first club, when I got into sort of working club level, within the sort of, I think the first 4 or 6 weeks, I had the chairman was going, can you do X? Can you do this? Can you do that? And suddenly I went from, say, turning up to do a few tweets about the match on a day and then do the report and maybe a post-match interview. I was suddenly doing various other things. And then as the sort of, went through and we were trying to sort of like be a bit more sort of visual across social media in terms of like graphics. I had, in my first club, I did actually have someone that did our goal graphics, did our match promotion graphics for us. And then as I moved on, it was sort of like, well, actually, they're not getting to me these graphics on time, within time for me to adequately promote stuff, or I just suddenly was like, hang on a minute, I've got Photoshop, I can do this. And that's kind of how it sort of stemmed from. So I very much am a bit of a sort of say jack of all trades, master of none. But it does the job. People seem to like what gets produced. I'm no way am I saying I'm, brilliant at everything. I definitely not. But to be able to try and put my hand into a few different things, it just allows us to have that sort of like visual, and for certain things, I'm always Googling tutorials as well and sort of like get an idea. I'm like trying to see if I can find a tutorial, if I can follow it, and then it works. And I'm like, oh, brilliant. That's really good to do. And I try and then recreate it or try and sort of spur it into other things. So yeah, it's sort of come trial and error, or the fact that I've studied. They sort of teach you a few different things, and obviously you can say specialize in certain things. As you said, you get people that are really into like sound, people that are more sort of just film based or writing, whereas I kind of get a bit of a kick out doing it all, and I like the fact that I can do different things because it just keeps the role varied. So it means that we don't have to just do the same thing, because where it is just myself, it would get a bit boring if it was just the same thing over and over and over. So that's why it's good to have those different things to do.
Yeah. And I understand kind of all of that. And in terms of, I have people that I go to for help on everything, and they may be sick of me asking. And I have, the same kind of YouTube channels that I frequent in terms of trying to get things done. And that's kind of how you have to do it, especially if it's just a kind of a one person gig. And my thought, and what I thought you were going to say, and was that, what you want to do is writing. And I think you have made yourself kind of indispensable almost in terms of doing all of the other stuff that needs to be done. But, it was, you were brought in to write, and then this other stuff sounds like it kind of creeped in at the last club you were at. Was that at Chichester, or was that somewhere else?
That was my very first club, Portsmouth.
Okay. Oh, okay. You weren't going to mention that. See, I ruined it. It's all right.
Yeah, when I was with Portsmouth Women, I got introduced there. The chairman at the time, Mick, as I said, he just sort of like was suddenly going, because obviously he again wanted to bring the set of things that the club did up a standard. So it was like something just basic, like the match day program before. It was just done by somebody on, I think it was like, the Microsoft Office Publisher.
Yeah.
I think someone just used to use that. Put something together on like about 4 or 8 pages. And then they used to print one copy, and then they used to go into their worker place and just photocopy it, and then it would just be kind of hand folded together. And it was like, no, I want something, can we do something better? And then he phoned me up and it's like, can you do that? Can you design something? I was like, yeah. And lucky enough at the time, I actually had all the software as well to do it. So I was like, yeah, I can do that. And I was like, can you do this? And I can do that. So yeah, it stemmed from there, and then as I've moved on and into different clubs, so when I was at Chichester, certain people sort of push, sort of go, oh, can you try this idea? Can you try that idea? And I sort of did, or it'd be like just ideas thrown out. And last year with Chichester, we had our county cup final, so I wanted to do one of those sort of video things where it sort of shows sort of the build up of the game, or build up to the game, and people milling around, sort of just sort of those sort of 4-minute videos where it sort of crashes everything in together. Wanted to do one of those, and I put that together, did a bit of planning. I had somebody, because obviously on the night I was doing my normal, sat at the laptop tweeting out the match updates. I was like, I want footage of around the ground, not just the normal match footage. I was like, so I just wrote down loads of sort of ideas of what shots I want, gave that list to someone, gave them the camera and went, can you do it? And they did it. And then I spent, a couple of days pushing it, cramming it all together to edit something into that 4-minute thing that went up. And that was quite a good hit with people. So, yeah.
I guess in terms of those types of, I guess, projects and things that you're trying to do, because I'm sure there's an element of wanting to try new things and trying to push yourself a little bit, and also help the club out and put out a good kind of product. But what was I guess the most challenging thing for you this season, kind of in your role at the club?
I think it's just basically time, just finding the time to do things. I am a volunteer, as everybody is. I work full time, so that's 40 hours a week I'm spent in a workplace. But then you have to add on, say, an extra hour either side of that, so that's about 10 hours a week travelling to and from work. And I don't live in Southampton near where we train, so I haven't been able to sort of do as many interviews and features as I would like to, because I can't get down to training, because I also don't drive. So I'm very reliant on lifts, and where the times that they start the training in comparison to when I can get to someone in order for them to pick me up to take me, it's very tight. And because of the area I live in, I actually, I found recently where there was next to no traffic, my travel time, I lost sort of 15, 20 minutes because there was no cars. So it just showed actually there was no one on the road. I could get to pieces quicker, but I can't. So, and I'm traveling, say, when I need to get to them during rush hour peak time. So it's just that timing, because I haven't been able to do that. But, I have planned things in order to do something, but I haven't always been able to do it. So that's something I want to look at next year. Can I get into a position where I can get down to training a bit more? I think I am in a job now where they might be a bit more flexible with me, say, moving a shift so I can sort of finish earlier in order so I can actually meet people for lifts in order to sort of put out a bit more, because I feel my role, more I can put out, more visibility I can put for the club, the better, because it's better for sponsors, it's better for people to see, oh, hang on a minute, Southampton Women's, oh, they've got a club, when do they play their games? It all links in. Right. And the overall idea for what I do is to just get more people through the game, because that's the thing I always feel makes football, is getting a crowd.
Yeah.
It's just it's the part and parcel of football. You need to have people in the ground watching, cheering, shouting. You need that.
Yeah, well, a lot of it that goes along with it is when people see the club or they interact with the club, whether it's on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or whatever, when they come across it, and the way that the club comes across is that it's a well-run like organization, and you have a lot to do with the face of that. And like you said, for sponsors and also for new players that are coming in, of course, they're going to look at the structure of the club and the chance they have to play and where they could play and the training opportunities and things they'll have. But, nobody wants to play for a club that looks like it's, just a guy throwing out a couple of cones and we're going to, play a game. And like, people want to play for something and they probably sponsor something that looks a bit more professional, and the club totally does. And that goes down to a lot of your hard work and a lot of hard work from behind the scenes from everybody else as well. But I guess for you, since you kind of get a do-over year next year, what would you what's a piece of advice you would give yourself in terms of looking ahead, knowing that you're gonna settle into a fairly long season again? What piece of advice would you give yourself for next year?
I suppose I've got a couple of bits really. One, just don't get stuck in your own head when you can't do things. It is what it is. And also just continue to plan and prepare, even if you don't do it. The ideas and planning was there, so you'd maybe use it another day. And just having those plans there was good.
I guess in terms of, coming into this season with the team, looking at the squad, did you have like some expectations in terms of how things would go on the pitch? And kind of what were those expectations?
I think we wanted to be challenging for the title. We needed to be challenging up there. They, placed second the previous 2 seasons, so we wanted to be right up there again. We knew it was going to be challenging when you've got a team that's just been newly promoted, but they've got a male club who is ploughing, say, £1 million into them. Yes, that's probably spread over, like, say, 3 or 4 years, but still, that sort of level of financial investment is huge. But we wanted to be up there. The girls had the capabilities of being up there. They definitely did. And they did prove that more than a couple of occasions this year, that they are capable. They just need to, I think, realise that going into next year and have that belief in themselves and just play their game. I think some of them possibly just need to sort of just breathe a bit and possibly take the advice that I'm giving myself is don't get stuck in your own head when you can't do things. Just move on. If you make a bad pass, it's fine. You've already made, say, 5 good passes. That one pass shouldn't ruin your 90 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you allow that to happen, then you just wind up, then the whole game goes and gets away from you very quickly. Whereas if you just kind of move on and recover, then, at the end of the day, maybe nobody even remembers that particular pass. And maybe 2 weeks from now, nobody remembers that. It all will work itself out. It's, as you said, the idea that you guys would be challenging for the title was kind of the goal, and you were, and as you said, the difference just in financial investment, you have players who are being paid versus players who are paying to play, and even given all the other jobs that the players at Southampton Women's have, you were still up there kind of challenging. And I guess with that said, is there looking back on the season, you did have a couple of losses, and is there a match that you're most looking forward to having another shot at next year, given that the table, there won't be any promotion or relegation from the league this year? So which of those matches are you really looking forward to having another shot at this year?
I suppose there's a couple. I think maybe not league-wise, but I would love another FA Cup run. Would be amazing. I love the FA Cup and the attention it can draw. And I think as well for a club, we do need to do more to sort of capitalise on that attention if we're in that position again, because we had a couple of big draws, and I don't think we did enough quick enough in order to get more people in. But league-wise, I think a few of us have still got a bit of maybe a grudge. That might not be the right word, but we're still a little bit peeved, I think, when it came to the home game against Cheltenham. I think we can all hold our hands up and say that we didn't really turn up on the day, but when you then also learn that the team fielded a player that wasn't eligible for them, and the league followed their own rules and they did it fine, but their rules were, when afterwards their punishment was they just took the 3 points off of Cheltenham, and that's all they did. And we were just like, hang on a minute, we're still penalised here. And it wasn't even as if it was a position where their player didn't do much in the game, because we actually were about to name her our player of the match, like the opposition player of the match, so she had an influence on that game. But that's by the by. We hold our hands up and say, the league followed their own rules. That's fine. But otherwise, I think it's got to be the derby game against the other Southampton. We only played them once in the season. Obviously, we were supposed to play them in February, but it got called off due to sod's law, the weather. Mm-hmm. But the first tie was a very closely fought, game, 0-0. We were, in terms of since their inception, we are the only team to have taken a point off of them in the league. And also, I think we're the first team to have stopped them scoring in the league as well. We must be sort of taking a point. But obviously as well, both those records are going to be wiped away now. So yeah, I think that gives us even more motivation to make sure that we do it again, or actually pick up the 3 points. Yeah. As I've said, the girls are more than capable of it, but you're going up against a team that has got all that financial support, but if I'm honest with you, sometimes can't always be the be all and end all, unless you're playing against obviously Man City or Chelsea.
Sure,
that's a different question.
Yeah, well, money makes a difference to an extent, and it can be kind of at the lowest level. Money can make a huge difference. And then I think at the very elite level, money can make a huge difference, and sometimes in the middle, you can make up for it. But if I recall correctly, and I could be wrong here, but I think that game was midweek, right? Under the lights at night, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it is. In our league, every team has to play at least one midweek fixture, and kudos obviously to our league. Actually, they always make it a local fixture. Mm-hmm. So I think when you're only playing like that one or two sort of midweek fixtures in a season, they do become a bit extra special. So yeah, you had that under the lights feeling, and there was a good crowd as well. I think there was over 300, maybe 400 people in on that night. Obviously most of them were cheering on the other Southampton, or they might have actually been standing there going, "Come on, Southampton!" and someone went, "Which one?"
Yeah.
But it was good, and I'm sure there'll be another cracking tie next year, and hopefully we'll actually get to do both fixtures this time.
Yeah. Well, and going back to the Cheltenham match, had you managed that win, you would have been sitting top of the table at this moment as it stands, which, with them, the league taking away the points from Cheltenham, that's one thing, but naming that player, the opposition player of the match, and obviously the influence they had, that a lot of things could have been different just with that one kind of decision. So, it's disappointing, but as you said, it's in the past now, and that will never have happened, I guess, which is, I don't think I've ever encountered this in all the years that I've ever been following a sport or anything like that. I've never, and I've never dealt with this before. So it's kind of a weird thing to look at. And when this happened and we were getting ready to speak, it was like, well, like this all of a sudden throws a wrench in kind of all of the things that we would have talked about. But the season is over and the results are going to be expunged and all of that stuff. But I guess let's talk about a couple of things that you won't forget and things that will kind of remain, at least in your memory and maybe in the pictures and videos from the club for here on out. I guess, is there anything that stands out to you this season? Like, what are some moments that you, I guess, won't forget? And I guess we can work from kind of the beginning of the season forward if you'd like.
Yeah. Wow. I don't think we could have had a less eventful start to the season, or at least Jane couldn't have had a least eventful start to the season, bless her. She's a cracking player and she's energetic. I think it's hard to ever get Jane just to sit still, but yeah, first game of the season, it's away. Love an away day. I don't think we did nearly enough this season. Every game seemed to be at home. But yeah, first game of the season, away to Brislington. We rock up. Believe it's a tough place to go. It's my first ever visit to them. First time ever seeing them play. And, you know, it was still summer, still in August. The weather was nice. You know, there wasn't much wind. It was great. You know, we're like, come on then, let's crack on. And yeah, Jane stole the headlines that day. The sin bin has been introduced this season into tiers 3 and below in the women's game, and certain steps in the men's game. I forget where in non-league, but yeah, we had the sin bin involved. And first game of the season, we go 1-0 up. I think it was Anya McKeever. She scored, I think, the first one. No, Lauren Clark, I think, scored. Then Jane gets her first goal. But then before that, there's something happens. I forget what happened at the time, but the referee, he speaks to her and puts her in the sin bin. So she's off for, I think it's 15 minutes. So she's off the pitch for, and it was right before half time as well. So she's off. And just, so we're down to 10.
So while she's off, you don't get to replace her then? You just have to play with 10 for that time?
Yeah, it's essentially the sin bin is there for players who do a form of dissent. So if they do dissent in the game, then the referee can send them off, put them in a player in the sin bin. There's other small rules to it. I would need to get them up to explain it better, so I'm not going to go too into it. But it doesn't, from the first off, it doesn't quite count as a yellow card. And it's like if a player's already been yellow card, I believe it doesn't act as like a sending off.
Okay.
But I believe in that same incident, Jane did also get a yellow card. So she got sin-binned and yellowed. So she goes off. We're down to 10. I think it's about 5 minutes before half time. And if anything, from memory, I actually believe we actually played better with 10. This is no comment on Jane, but we still controlled the game. We played very well. And then we score a third in that time from penalty. I think it was Kelly. She scored it, Kelly Warren. And then Jane comes back on the pitch. And in that sort of time, she scores another 2 goals. She gets a hat-trick. Bridlington also scored 2. So it's 5-2 in the game. So you think, God, that's enough. Mm-hmm. And then something else happens. Jane gets sent off. She gets a second yellow and she's off the pitch. And it was like, how does that happen? How do you get yellow, get booked, she gets sin-binned, score 3 goals in the process and get sent off? So she was like, you know, hero, that sort of old saying, hero to zero. But, you know, she wasn't. It was what it was. But yeah, it caught the attention. It was funny at times. But yeah, that sort of will stand out, just sort of like those whole headlines. But there's other moments. I think the whole FA Cup run was superb. As I've mentioned, I love the FA Cup, and I know most of the team and staff love the FA Cup. I think the game for me was MK Dons, where we were literally, I think, seconds, something like 10 seconds or less away from being knocked out of the FA Cup. We had taken Milton Keynes Dons of the league above us to extra time. I don't remember much from the normal play of the game, but I do remember the fact that Romsey Town's pitch wasn't in the best of shape. But we managed to get the game on, and I think it affected both teams, their ability to play football. Neither of us could find the net. Go into extra time, MK Dons take the lead, in that half an hour, and you're like, we're trying to push, find that equaliser. And as I said, I think there must have been seconds left on the clock, and we get a free kick. Lauren Cheshire steps up to take it, and she's told me afterwards that Jane went to her, shoot, go for it, and she did, and an absolute stunner of a free kick. Anyone wants to see it, it's on the Southampton women's Twitter account. It's superb, just flies top corner, and we're just like all sent delirious. Rose Kite, our goalkeeper, she was up in the penalty area. I would have loved to actually see her to score. I always love goalkeepers going up in the last minutes for a free kick or corner. Sends us delirious. We're going to pens, and then it's freezing cold because obviously it's December time. I think the game was played, so we're starting to get into winter. It's getting cold. Obviously, sun's set because we're now past 5 o'clock or nearing 5 o'clock. And say it's freezing. We're all cold. I've given up tweeting because I think my laptop's about to go and my hands are just like almost frozen together. So I'm like, I'll give up the tweeting. And not only that, tweeting at penalty shootout was just horrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then we win on penalties. 2 great saves from Rose. She did her homework. And Erin Bloomfield with the cool finish for the 5th final one for us, and just send everyone delirious and into that would have been the 3rd round that took us into. Yeah. But yeah, an unbelievable game and sort of determination from the girls. But there's lots of little moments that I know are sort of treasured girls because they're such a good group. They've got such a great sense of humour. When you become sort of that knit group, and even as a media officer, you're sort of a bit more involved with them on the bus and sort of just like the banter and that. And the staff are fantastic. Like Smithy's very keen to have good people in for his staff that he can lean on, he can trust to do various things, and it's all a good knit group and something that we should be able to take on going forwards.
Yeah, I think I do remember watching or following along on Twitter as that match was going on, and just the drama that unfolds in that, because you're down so late on. The penalty shootout itself is a horrible thing to watch. And then, you spoke of Erin stepping up to take the final kind of penalty. And I mean, she's been on the show before, and if you didn't know, I mean, she's not even gone to college yet, right? Like, she's so young and playing so well.
Yeah.
So just all the pressure there, and to have her just kind of do that. And I think it means, and I know it meant a lot to her, and I think it meant a lot to everybody else as well. So,
she loves a goal.
Yeah. I think if you could have done one thing differently, for me, it would have been the 4th round draw for the FA Cup. If you could just have one thing over, nothing against Crystal Palace, but you get that late on in the competition. There's a lot of big teams in there, and you either want, I think we talked about it a little bit. You want to double
yourself up.
Yeah. You want either the big, maybe the big away day, or you want a team that you can beat, and you kind of got none of those,
Yeah, it was a weird draw. I mean, yes, great. It was home again, although obviously that home draw had its own controversy. But when you're seeing teams get drawn out against Arsenal, City, Ipswich, they had a fantastic run, same level as us, and they got Man City away. It would have been, I think, better for them if they'd been at home. They could have really capitalised on that. But I know they took several hundred fans up to the Academy Stadium for that match. But yeah, when you are a team that's been in it since the sort of the qualifying rounds, you get all the way to the rounds where the big boys, or big girls say in this place, in this, in our case, you want to draw Chelsea, you want to draw City, you want to draw Arsenal, Liverpool. We all did, because we all want, the players, they wanted to go up against international players. Smithy would have wanted to put himself against top level coaches. I wanted to showcase my skills and the club against, these top level clubs that I've got. They probably would have turned up with a whole, 11 media people themselves, and then it would have just been me going, hi. We wanted that, but we got Crystal Palace. We still got a few hundred people into the ground on the day. Obviously, when we played Palace, it was gutting what happened, but British weather is the British weather.
Yeah.
And it played its part. But yeah, the girls can take full credit on what they did in that FA Cup run, even against Crystal Palace. They did as good as they could. There is a difference. There were 2 leagues above us. I saw some really daft comments from some Crystal Palace fans saying about I hope you turn up next time after say the home tie was sort of abandoned. But I was just like, you not even realise that these girls are doing this in their own spare time. They're not, we're 2 leagues below you.
Yeah.
Half your lot are part-time because they're a semi-professional club, Crystal Palace women. And not only that, only a year or 2 ago, Crystal Palace were actually only last year. Crystal Palace were still playing in the league below. So they haven't gone up that quickly that they should be forgetting this perspective. But I think that would be the big thing if we got another FA Cup run next year. It would just be can you actually give us that big team?
Yeah. And I mean, overall, I think a lot of people will be proud of what happens or what happened this season, both on and off the pitch. And unfortunately, some of the records will be kind of wiped out because of the coronavirus and the abandoning of the season itself. But if we kind of switch to just off the pitch stuff for a minute, you've had a season with a lot of these players, and I guess who least likes to be interviewed. When you walk into the locker room after the game, or you're going up to the players as they're coming off the pitch, and you have to have the post match interview, who's looking down at the ground or looking the other way or trying to get by you without having to be addressed by you the most?
Pretty much all of them. They all hate it. I think that probably stems from them not having done it much, because obviously those who've been at the club for a few years or have been at other clubs where the media hasn't been it's been done by someone within the club that's got 1,000 other roles, so they just sort of go in, there's the game and there's the result, so they haven't had much exposure to it. Okay. But and the fact as well, I haven't done much in terms of player interviews this year, and obviously that's something I do want to change, because I want the girls to get comfortable and be good around sort of camera or interviews, so that they don't sort of go, oh my god, what are you going to ask me? This, that, and the other. Wherever I could, I always try to sort of prep them beforehand, sort of say, here's some of the questions, or I give them sort of a synopsis of what we're going to talk about. Mm-hmm. And then I always sort of say to them, just breathe. We are literally just having a chat about football. It will be fine. And those that I have done this year, they've been fine. They've been good.
Yeah.
I don't think, they sort of go away and they're like, oh my God, was I all right? Was I all right? I was like, yeah, we're fine. We're good.
Yeah.
I'm not expecting polished perfection from people that are doing this part-time, that have got jobs, they've got other lives. I'm not expecting them to be able to sort of speak fluently and, really eloquently. I'm not expecting Lucy Bronze to turn up. I know what they are, but we can work with them.
Well, I mean, even I've just watched back Southampton's 1976 Cup final earlier this week, and even some of those interviews, because those guys were not media trained, it's trying to talk to those guys after the match, and I think there were even a curse word or two were uttered, and it's like, that's what happens when people aren't.
Yeah.
The current professionals have all of this kind of training and stuff that goes on, and all this preparation that goes on into having these post match interviews, and as you said, the girls this year, they're coming from rushing from work to get to the game to turn up, and then after the game they got to go back home, and some of them have families to take care of, some have just work to go back to right away, and so it's a whole different kind of thing. So is there anybody that really just plays it up when they get on camera, or when you have to talk to them after the match?
I'd say the jury is still out on that one, purely because of where I haven't done much with players. I've only done a handful of player interviews, so I think maybe ask me that question next year, okay. And hopefully we'll have done a few more bits and pieces with the players, and we'll see what happens. I suspect that there's some bits that haven't come out. I think the only person I've really interviewed most in the last year is the manager, Aaron Smithy, and pretty much every time I interview him, he's just like, my hair okay, or he's a bit conscientious of how he looks, but I think that's more from a professional standpoint than vanity.
Sure. I mean, have you spoken to him since the season has been called off, and what's his kind of I guess what are his feelings around it?
Yeah, I briefly spoke to him a couple of times earlier this week. We exchanged sort of like a few messages. He was sort of like a bit gutted about the whole sort of season, and obviously as well with like certain teams still say in the league, he's sort of looking at that going, okay, we've still got that sort of dilemma to sort of deal with, but and then he's also got the headache of the planning now.
Yeah.
Sort of planning pre-season, when do you get players back in? How do you get players back in? Because as I say, things are very much still up in the air at the moment. You don't know the timelines. You don't know when it's going to be safe for people to be in close contact with each other. So while he can plan, I've said this to him, he's like, don't know things at the moment. He's like, yeah. So at the moment he's just, I think, planning, enjoying, say, things being a bit chilled at the moment, because obviously he's got a family, he's got a little boy, so he's got between him and his wife, they've got to try and homeschool him and that. So yeah, he's got one eye on football, I think, at the moment, like we all have, hoping and praying that it's it would be back yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. And just switching to the men's game for a moment. One of the questions that we got in via Patreon is, this comes from Rob, and it says, do you think the men's season will be canceled or just postponed until it can be finished? And obviously we're speculating a little bit, but what are your thoughts about, I guess the rest of the season, and even if you want to extend that to the top two divisions of women's football? I mean, do you think that's coming back? And is it, I mean, I guess it's just really hard to say, but what's your gut feeling on it, I guess?
I think, obviously, they want to get the season finished. I think that would have probably been the ideal situation across the board at all levels of football, because we're already in a position where we've got a season started. Let's finish it. Let's get those results. Let's nail them down. And then perhaps if that had taken us into halfway into like next season, then you maybe have said like, we'll scrap the 2021 season, and maybe they could have done something else, a mini tournament or whatever, just say run the cups maybe, and had that over a shorter period. I don't know. Yeah, it's hard. Where some people have called for just call the leagues as they are, I don't think you can do that. But I think no matter what the football authorities do, you're going to have people that are going to moan about it. You're not going to appeal everybody, but I truly believe that you cannot call the season as it is if people haven't legitimately won something. So across all 4 leagues, no team has won their title. No team has secured promotion. No team has been relegated. I think the only thing that has been 100% won is the League Cup. It's the only thing to have been played and won. The same in the women's game. The only thing that's been won is the Conti Cup in obviously the Super League between Super League and Championship. I do want to see the season finished in some ways, because just to get those sort of results, but then it's like, how long do you leave it? How long before we can get it played? But then that's also the same question in terms of then how do you restart football again for the new season? It's got so many ramifications, and it's like, I'm glad I'm not part of the people that have to make those decisions, because I think I'd be banging my head against the wall trying to figure out like what the best way is to do, and I'm, in some ways, you could sort of say, just call the season, finish it, don't give anything, just leave it as it is, everyone stays where they are. In some ways, I think that could be an option, and I'm coming from the position of being a fan of a club that is still in a promotion place. We can still get promoted, but it has such ramifications. I think no matter what happens, even if they do complete the season, there's still going to always be question marks, or there's still going to be a stigma over that season. So anyone that wins the title, the FA Cup, wins promotion, people will always go, oh yeah, but that was that season. Don't get me wrong, I am also coming from a position of being someone that does not want to see Liverpool win the title.
I can appreciate that. So will all fans of this podcast. Oh, except for one.
But in some ways, it's like, you know what? They've done the most to win the title this year, but even without this sort of virus pandemic being in place, I still would have looked at it like Liverpool winning this title going, if you didn't win it, you needed looking at yourself, because of how they've had no real competition this year.
Yeah.
No one's been up to the pace. And then this second half of the season for Liverpool, I think, like when they eventually lost in the league, I think I must have been about the only person that was sat there going, no, I saw this coming. Like, not necessarily like the other losses they had, like in the Champions League and cup competitions. The league loss, I saw that coming for ages, because I'm like, they are beatable. People are just not scoring, just not putting it in the back of the net.
Yeah.
I think when they played West Ham on the Monday night for, I think, that loss on the Saturday, whenever it was, I remember watching that game with West Ham going, how the hell did they win this?
Yeah.
They should have lost against West Ham. I'm sure it was West Ham. I could be wrong.
I think it was.
They won 3-2. And I was like, how in God's name did you win this? But yeah, I don't envy the football authorities at all with this decision. It'll be what it'll be. And I think we'll just have to deal with it. I just do very much feel for like people in like Southampton's position, where we've had our season confirmed that it's over, and there were teams that actually had secured promotion. I know a team on the South Coast, Worthing United, both their men and their women's teams had secured promotion. That has just been ripped away from them.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine, like, they've had, they've celebrated on the days. They were like, yes, we've promoted, they will obviously pop the champagne and all that. And now the football authorities have gone, nah, your season's over and it's going to be wiped. And they're going, what? But I think they've taken it on the chin, which, fair play to them. But obviously, that could have huge ramifications, because they might have players that this might have been their last season. Suddenly their last season's been wiped off the record books.
Yeah.
Will they still be able to have the same team from this year, in order to do it next year? I think football as a whole won't take a while to recover and I think that will be the majority of football. There will be certain clubs within football that will survive, will be okay, because they've got safety nets, big safety nets, but there's going to be a lot, that can struggle. And there's already rumours that some WSL clubs in the women's game, Super League clubs, or maybe even Championship clubs, could fold in the coming months because of this, because of money, because sponsors, I believe, knocking on the door going, well, we paid for a year, but we're not getting a year.
Yeah.
So we have, pro rata back, pro rata of our sponsorship money. And it's like, I can imagine being that club going, well, no, because that's paid for, X, Y, Z. And
yeah.
So it's going to be a difficult position, I think, all round.
Yeah, it's definitely going to have a kind of a far-reaching impact, and we won't really know the full ramifications until this has happened, and that goes for men's game, women's game, all across the board. And we do have another question here from Kevin McGee, another patron of the show, and he's asking mostly about kind of the backstory behind the fact that there are two Southampton women's football clubs, one being Southampton FC Women's, one being Southampton Women's FC, and there was a third one, and I'm sure there have been more over time, but the Southampton Women's Football Club, which you are associated with, is, I believe, the longest running, continuously running football club for women in the Southampton area. There was also the Southampton Saints Girls and Ladies FC, which was associated with Southampton FC before, until they were relegated in 2005, which meant that they kind of went out on their own, and now they no longer exist because of financial reasons. So Southampton FC itself didn't have a women's team for some time until, I think, 2 seasons ago. Is that correct?
This current season that's been scrapped is their third year of having a women's team.
Right.
I think they had a year or two where they had youth teams, and then they created the first team through those youth players coming up.
Right.
Sort of like being sort of 16, and obviously gotten a few experienced players. But I probably don't know, say, the ins and outs of terms of why there's two, in terms of why, say, Southampton FC didn't invest in either us or Southampton Saints. I've heard little bits and pieces, but
yeah,
they decided what they decided. And they've set up on their own. I think it would have been better had they taken one of the clubs under the wing, perhaps even the actual team that they had in the first place.
Yeah.
But, we are Southampton Women's FC. We are the one that started back in 1970, which is the year before the ban was lifted by the FA on women's football, playing sort of like competitively, because obviously during that ban there was women's teams and stuff being played, but that's another sort of history lesson. So we've been going on, we've run independently from the men's team throughout that whole 50 years. Not once have they been involved. So the club's, done well. They dominated the FA Cup in the sort of 70s into the 80s. They won 8 FA Cups and were finished in the final as well a few times. Where there's only one team that's won the FA Cup more, and that's Arsenal, and they've done that more so in, say, the modern era of the game, so sort of since the 90s. But yeah, I suppose it's just down to, say, the men's not hooking onto us that there's two teams, and the fact as well we have the name first, Southampton Women's FC. Obviously, they've then wanted to create their own women's team, and the FA or whoever has allowed them to be called Southampton FC Women, which is not confusing at all.
No, it's perfectly clear.
I suspect, perhaps a conversation should have been had that, they should have maybe changed the name or added something in there to have it more different, the identity different, but obviously where they're partnered with the main club, not main club, but the men's side that are established as Southampton FC, they're going, well, we don't want to be Southampton United, Southampton City. But, various things happen for a reason, but it was always fun. Even when we played each other back in September, even on the day, I was still like, how on earth do I report this game?
Yeah.
Southampton versus Southampton, it was hard. But I did a little bit of a history thing on our website up to the game, because obviously for a couple of months prior, I kept seeing people going, how can you pay yourself? How can you pay yourself? Like, even reply to like ourselves or the other Southampton.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, look, they are two separate clubs, but it is what it is. We move on. We will always be here to sort of go, look, we were the first ones here. We're the original. We've got ones that have got the history. Like this season alone, I've, suddenly discovered and met some of the players that were from that original Southampton women's team. I had the absolute pleasure of meeting Leslie Lloyd, who was the original captain. She was an absolute delight to talk to. And, she was the first captain that lifted that FA Cup in the women's game and for Southampton,
Yeah.
And to have that history on our doorstep to go, well, this really happened. These people were here and they represented Southampton. We've had, some of the players as well represented England at the time. Sue Lopez, she's she went on, made several caps for England, but she was also a Southampton women's player as well. So we've got that. They don't. They're building it at the moment. They're building that history, but we've got that, and that's something as well I want to explore, because it needs to be known that. And even if something happens to this Southampton women's, whatever, the other Southampton can't take that history. It's not theirs.
Yeah,
it never will be.
Absolutely. I just want to say thank you for taking the time to do this. I know it's it's a little bit fun, but it's also kind of nerve wracking. And I know you're giving up part of your time, and I know we're all kind of sitting around not sure what to do, but still to sit down and do this is still, it means a lot to me that you would do that. And I appreciate your work. As somebody who's been following Southampton Women's FC for, I would say now this is year 4 or 5. As long as I've been doing the podcast, I've been going along with the team, and you've made it a lot easier to come in and kind of keep up with the team, and I appreciate your work a lot for that. It's been easier to get in touch with players and things like that, because it's not just some random dude from California messaging them saying, hey, do you want to chat on Skype? Because that always goes a little bit off the rails. They're not sure what's going on, but to have you to go through, I think has been great. And I appreciate that. If people want to get in touch with the team, they can go to the website. The link is in the show notes below, and they can sponsorships and things like that. I'm sure as details come out about next season, that'll all be there, and the club relies on sponsorships, and players rely on sponsorships to make the season happen. So that's all super important. So the website is southamptonwfc.co.uk. The link to email the club secretary is in there. Hopefully Amanda comes back next year, and she'll be there for that. And if they have questions media wise, they can get in touch with you. You're at Newman Hay on Twitter and at Newman Hay on Instagram, so they can do that as well. But yeah, I just want to say thanks for doing that. And before we go, I should say, is there anything else that you want to cover before we go? I don't want to cut you off.
I just want to sort of take this opportunity to really sort of thank everyone that's been following the club, supporting the club. If you've come to games, followed us online, all our sponsors as well, player sponsors, main sponsor. We know this is hard times right now, and like sponsoring ahead of next season is probably the least of people's concerns. But if people are interested, let us know. I'm sure it's something that we're going to be, I think we'll probably need to review what we do going forwards. But as you rightly said, sponsorship is something that we heavily rely on. And the more sponsorship that we can get in, the less our players have to pay out themselves. Because we're still in a position where we're asking players to pay. Like our first team players are having to pay, and it would be good to get to a point where first team players don't, because then they don't have to worry about that. And I think we shouldn't be in a position where we're going, well, we can only have these players because they can afford to play. I think that's just not a right thing to do, but we'll get there. We'll push on. But yeah, thank you everybody, sponsors. Thank you the coaches, players for putting up with myself, staff off the pitch as well, like behind the scenes. Thank you for integrating like us newbies into the club this year. There's so much more that we can do, we should be doing for women's football and for Southampton women's, to get people to come along and watch us, because we are the originals. But yeah, thank you everybody, and I want to say as well, just the support people have given myself personally has been fantastic. Players, comments, staff, the comments, it's great, and it does help, especially if you're having a bit of a bad day or bad week. Just that one comment saying, oh, that thing you did was brilliant, or what you do overall, like yourself saying, you know, it's been easier for yourself. You know, that's what I'm happy to see, that if people are coming down to the game for the first time, they've never watched women's football or never watched Southampton women, but actually suddenly they've got the bug. If it's because of a tweet or video I put out of a player doing something, that's what I want. I want the expansion of the game. I want more people to come down. As I said, football is not football without fans and the support.
All right. Well, I just again want to say thank you, and encourage people to go out and you know, take note of the team that's there and that's been around, and just give them the support, because it's a big part of the local community, and you know, the football is also good, so that there's that as well. If you just want good football, there's they're playing it out there. So thank you again, and I'm looking forward to doing this again as we get more clarity as to what's going on next season.
Definitely, it'd be good to chat back again and maybe throw some more players under the bus.
That's what I'm here for. And that does it for this week's episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you've enjoyed it. Special thanks this week goes out to Hayley Newman. Get in touch with her at Newman Hay on both Twitter and Instagram if you're interested in getting in touch at all with the Southampton Women's Football Club. There are links in the show notes to contact the club secretary if you're interested in becoming a club sponsor, sponsoring a player for next season, because although this season is done and the records will be expunged, next season just means a fresh start and another chance to challenge for a league title and promotion to the next tier of women's football. If you'd like to get in touch with this show, you can do that at SFCDELL_IVERY on both Twitter and Instagram. We're also on Facebook at facebook.com/SFCDelivery. There is no underscore in the Facebook address. You can get those links and more at southamptondelivery.com, the show website, where you can also sign up for the weekly newsletter that comes out each and every Friday. It just keeps you up to date with what's going on with the show and also with the club, even though nothing right now is going on with the club. So there's that. The show would not be possible without the partners of the show, the Southampton Page. You can find them on Twitter and Instagram, at Southampton Page on Twitter and at Southampton Page 1 on Instagram. The logo was done by Matt Beeling of the We Are Southampton page on Instagram. Be sure to follow along. He's got great stuff coming out all the time there. All music for the show comes courtesy of the Free Music Archive at freemusicarchive.org. The intro song is Epic Song by Boxcat Games, and the end of show credits that you listen to right now is Aim is True by Poddington Bear. Somebody's at the door. We're pausing. Is the coffee here? Yes. From Michael's? This is getting weird. We'll be back next week. I hope you will too. And until then, remember that together, we march on.